All
right, good morning, everyone. I'm John Gisi. I'm an integration developer manager here in OIT. I've been at Georgia Tech for about 4.5 years. Joining me today is Joe Younkins. He's a seasoned professional in data stage and has brought a wealth of knowledge and experience to our team. Together with our team, we have worked to develop a strategy for implementing integration projects. Today, we will share our strategy with you and how we overcame challenges of these integration projects. So thank you for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy it. Okay. Just to give you context, we're a team of 10 developers, and we manage enterprise data integrations. This includes DataStage, MuleSoft, Workday, PeopleSoft, and Azure. Our team's story is about adopting new technologies, culture, and processes, the story of challenges we faced, how people in our team and beyond reacted to the changes, how it impacted our customer experience, and how it resulted in successful project outcomes.
Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone online too. So this is a flow of our time. Prior to 2019, our team was focused on the applications used by the administrative units on campus, as well as some custom developed for other folks on campus. We implemented and supported multiple versions of PeopleSoft HCM and PeopleSoft Financials. In 2019, we implemented Workday Cloud for Finance. And the Board of Regents implemented PeopleSoft HCM, what we know as One USG, in 2020. After the implementation of these two systems, we needed to shift our skill set to better serve the Institute. We were asked to develop a skill set in ETL tools and technologies such as data warehousing, DataStage, MuleSoft, and Azure. This was the new frontier for us. Along with this frontier came a set of challenges that we address. Hard to do from this angle. We faced 3 sets of interacting challenges. The categories that we faced challenges in were technology, processes, and culture. We all know as technology evolves rapidly, it's challenging to keep up with the latest tools and technology. For our integration projects, we encountered challenges related to keeping up with needed skill sets and learning new technologies. Basically, finding team members with the right expertise was challenging. Another challenge we faced was the learning curve associated with learning these new technologies. Introducing these new tools required learning and adapting to new concepts, features, and best practices. This impacted project timelines and productivity as team members needed time to gain skills in these new technologies. As we reflect on our integration projects, we acknowledge that we face challenges with our processes, specifically related to documentation and procedures, project approval and prioritization, and requirements gathering. Without consistent templates, guidelines, and documentation, it was challenging to ensure that all of our projects follow a standardized approach. This led to inconsistencies, confusion, and delays in integration project execution. Requirements gathering also posed challenges for our integration team. In the past, requirements were provided to us, and then we would do the development. In this new world, we had to wear business and technical analyst hats, and we were responsible for gathering the requirements. As we all know, gathering accurate and comprehensive requirements is complex. When these requirements are not communicated effectively, it results in scope creep, missed requirements, and rework. We needed to align our goals with the objectives and overall organizational structure and culture. Our team was in multiple departments, had multiple reporting lines, and was teleworking 100%. Another challenge we encountered was the managing expectations of leadership. Our leadership had specific expectations regarding project outcomes, timelines, and deliverables. After identifying these challenges, we took proactive steps to tackle these head on, and we successfully implemented strategies to overcome them. Next, I will describe our integration strategy. After that, John Gisi will present how we reskilled team members and used meetings to help address these three challenges. And we will be questions from you at the end. We developed an integration strategy to track projects, manage expectations, and drive results. In order to address the challenges that I mentioned earlier, we created a standard set of procedures and documents to be used across multiple tool sets. So, is there anybody here that really enjoys creating documentation? Okay, we've got a few. So, I know, like on the technical side, it's not one of our most favorite things to do, and documenting an IT process is kind of like writing a book, except you hope people read it. And we are using this strategy to create documents that we want our team members to refer to. And our integration strategy is defined by a series of documents and procedures. It allows us to successfully implement integrations from customer intake through production support and cross-training. These documents and procedures address the challenge we face regarding a lack of these documents and procedures. And it also helps us to address project approval and prioritization and requirements gathering. This process is also very flexible and tool and platform agnostic. This process has also created more ease for developers and managers, as we only have one set of documentation to maintain and we are all familiar with it. The expectation of developers and leads is clear, which allows everyone to know what tasks they are responsible for. The procedures and documents also become more ingrained in us the more we use them and allow us to build the habits of following this strategy. The next document I'm going to share is the integration steps document. So this is the driver of our integration strategy. It is a start to finish guide of all the steps of an integration project, from project intake, production support, and knowledge transfer to all other developers. This document essentially becomes a project plan where you can punch in dates and assign a resource to a task. Columns of the step document include the step, there's the resource that it will be assigned to, the document name associated with that step, and then we put in a link to the completed document for that step. Each developer and lead on the project can view this document and know what tasks need to be completed. This also creates transparency and trust, which is important in the culture of the Institute. And so we had this integration steps document that will help us avoid this. I'm going to share information on 4 other documents that we use that are important in this process. Each document builds on the ones prior to it, and these documents get us from customer intake to creating a technical specification. All of our projects begin with an intake form. As soon as someone approaches us requesting an integration, we ask them to complete this form. This form helps us to address challenges regarding project approval and prioritization. We have a process that our customers are expected to participate in. The next document is the integration requirements document, or integration requirements questions, which I'm showing on the screen. This document is a list of questions that we ask the customer to help us gather all the information that we need regarding an integration. The first set of questions focuses on timeline, milestones, and people who will be involved at various stages of the project, such as testers, vendor technical contacts, and data experts for data validation. The second step in the second section of the document helps us to gather all the information about the integration from the perspective of the source and target systems. And then the last section, which is, if there is a change in requirements that is going to impact timeline of other projects, we have a series of questions that we ask about the availability of resources, project needs, project timelines and priority, and our overall big picture scope of work. And after thinking through these questions, we will have a better idea of how to proceed when there's a change that's going to impact more projects. The next document is the data usage request form. Data stored approval is a key part of our process. Without the necessary approval from the data stores, a project cannot move forward. We want to ensure that we have the data owner's permission to share the requested fields with the system that we are interacting with. The functional user that is requesting the integration will fill out the data usage request form, sometimes with the help of a technical team member. Once the form is completed, it will be uploaded into DocuSign and then routed to the appropriate data stores for their approval. So the final document that I will talk about is our integration design document. This document acts as a specification to guide the developer during the creation of the integration. The answers to a lot of the questions, especially relating to the source and target systems, will be recorded in this document. What data is needed, what's the selection criteria, field mapping and transformations, how is this information being delivered to the target system. So the developer will use this document to create the integration. And these 4 documents that I described help us get us through the most challenging part of the integration lifecycle, which is customer intake through creating a technical specification. And now I will hand it over to John to talk about how we helped increase the skills of our resources and use meetings to address the challenges. Thanks, Joe. Just did. Okay.
All right. Again, I'm John Gisi. Who here has kids? Okay. I found the kids are an amazing mirror and an insight into us. They know, my kids know me better than I think they do. So one day I'm driving down the road and I was with my son and my daughter. They're in the back seat. I think they were probably 7 and 9 at the time, maybe 7 and 10. And we're driving down the road and my son pipes up from the back and he says, "Hey Dad, who are you talking to?" I wasn't talking to anybody. We were just driving down the road. What I realized was in my mind, I was going over a conversation I was going to have later that day. And I was driving and talking with my hand. And my son had always recognized that what I was doing with my hands meant I was talking, even though I wasn't talking to anybody. I always thought that was really funny. So the point of that is I tend to talk with my hands. But I've been told that my hand motions have nothing to do with what I'm saying. So if they throw you off while I'm talking, I apologize. So I clear the area with that. All right. All right, as Joe mentioned earlier, the team was in a period of transition, working with PeopleSoft to working with 3 new integration technologies. That's Data Stage, PeopleSoft, and Azure Synapse. Because of this, the leadership team needed to create a plan to support our team in learning these three new technologies. It's not effective or realistic to think that everybody can learn all 3 at the same time, right? It's not a good strategy. So what we did is we went and talked to everybody and had everybody pick a primary technology they were going to work with. And then once they felt comfortable with that, then start to look at a secondary technology that they could work with. That way we could cover all 3 with different resources, but also we didn't overwhelm everybody or any one person. Okay. To help support the team during this time of change, we worked to create a culture to support everybody in learning new technologies. Everybody in the group was starting from the ground up, right? Some people had some small knowledge in some of the areas, but for the most part, we were all learning this from the ground floor. So we wanted to create a culture where it was okay to suck at something new, right? We've all seen the phrase, "Be brave enough to suck at something new." We wanted to create a culture to nurture this. So the leaders took every opportunity we could to talk about our own mistakes and our own challenges we had while we were trying to figure this out. None of us are going to be suddenly good at anything, and we wanted to make sure that everyone on the team felt okay with that. One of the efforts we put into place to support this was a set of meetings called Innovation Thursdays. That was a weekly meeting where a team member would get up, or actually get in front of everybody because they were Teams meetings, and present on a topic. Either this was something they learned through a class or through experience, or maybe an online video that they would share with the team. And we didn't limit it to just tech and what was going on with the team. We opened it up to whatever. We had one team member teach us how to cook their favorite dish. And so these Innovation Thursday meetings serve several purposes. One is anytime you teach a subject, you're going to get to know it better as you're teaching it. So it helped reinforce the knowledge that they were learning. And 2, we were all now working from home, which was not our norm. And on top of it, we were a brand new team. And so having these meetings helped the team members get to know each other a little bit better also. And finally, it really accomplished the cross-training. So, once you finish a project, or implementation, you have to cross-train to other people so that they can support it. It accomplished that goal also. We had to change the structure of meetings to support our new processes and better support our customers. For our customer-centered meetings, we changed the expectation of the technical level of our customers. So when we were a team supporting PeopleSoft, we worked very heavily with application analysts. They would bring us requests that were very specific, right? They knew what they wanted, what data points they wanted, what they wanted to look like, where on the screen it should be. And then when we were done, they knew how to test it and they knew how to give us feedback. Well, that wasn't what we were working with anymore. We're now working with business-based users that were much less technical. They were subject matter experts for their area of Georgia Tech, but they weren't technical. And so because of this, our initial kickoff meetings became a lot more critical. Based upon our lessons learned from our early projects, we learned to ask what the goal of the project was at the beginning versus really what they were asking. Because a lot of times we could propose something or a different solution or something that would work better versus what they had kind of decided was probably a good thing. So it turned into a different type of conversation in those initial kickoff meetings with our requesters. We also learned in those initial meetings to talk about who's going to be testing and validating the data right away. We got into several projects where we got halfway through or kind of towards the end of the project, and just to find out that the requesters didn't really know how to validate and test the data. And so we scrambled to figure out how to do that, how to help them. And so now we ask at the beginning of the meetings or at the beginning of the project so that we can figure that out along the way if we have to. The other thing we did was we started to make a conscious effort to keep camera on during our meetings. Because back before, we worked with the same group of people over and over again. We built relationships with them. Everybody knew everybody else. I think a lot of times we worked in the same building. And that just wasn't the case anymore. And so in order to kind of build those relationships and that trust back up, we did little things like turn on our camera. Even if the other person didn't, it still helped build that relationship. And then for our upper management meetings, we kept the updates at a very high level. We worked to be honest and candid about what was going on in the project. And we talked about issues and roadblocks that may be causing issues or delays. That gave the executives a chance to help us remove these barriers and also remove the possibility of them getting caught unaware if something was going to go bad. You know, we've all seen projects where maybe somebody kind of hid that a project was kind of heading south and then it came out of nowhere. That doesn't help us, doesn't help the executive. So we try to change how to approach those. We also had to rethink and restructure the way we worked with vendors. Right at the beginning of the project, we meet with the vendor and establish who our technical contact will be, who will be working with us to test, and confirm that the vendor can meet the deadlines established by the project requester. Our early projects, we ran into occasions where we found that the requester hadn't had those conversations with the vendor. So sometimes they couldn't meet the deadlines. Sometimes we didn't know if they could verify the data. And so we started to ask those right at the beginning. So one example that I had, which caused me to change the way I move forward, is I walked into a project and I got 75% of the way through it, all the way down to the testing phase where we were actually sending data to the vendor, right? And so I start to send the data uploads and they just fail. And so I get together with the vendor and say, okay, so we're doing these uploads and they're failing. Can you take a look and tell me why? And so they look and they come back to me pretty quick and they say, wait a minute, how many people are you uploading? Well, we have like 15,000 employees. And they said, oh, whoa, our biggest customer is only like 6,000. So, you know, from the past, I'd assumed that when we were selecting the technology, somebody had said, hey, vendor, can you handle this size of a data set? And they hadn't. So lesson for us, we have to take a look at those things right away and just not make any assumptions about that. Again, it's nothing against our requesters. It's just a different type of requester that we have to get used to. It really just pushed us out of our comfort zone, which is great, helps us learn stuff. We discussed connectivity options right away also with the vendor. Every vendor has a variety of connectivity options, from APIs to SFTP drop-offs. But we established what those options are right away, and it helps us with our choose which technology we're going to use, especially now since we have 3 different technologies we can use to create our integrations. We started doing regular project team stand-up meetings. In these meetings, we discuss roadblocks, technical issues, and other problems that people are facing. This creates a forum for people to get help and to also offer help to their other team members. And at the end of the project, we ensure that cross-training is done on every implementation through the use of the Innovation Thursday meetings that I talked about earlier. And finally, we cap off the projects with a project review. And in those, we discuss the lessons learned, and then we update our process using those lessons learned. Of course, that's a pretty critical process. Joe showed earlier our development steps document. We update and change that thing all the time based upon our lessons learned, how we've changed our processes. We update, we add steps, drop steps off, and it's a living document. And most of the documents we've created are living documents, which I think is pretty critical to our process. So what have the results been? We've been able to better serve our customers. Implementing this consistent process makes the project more predictable. And adding our lessons learned into the next project helps address potential issues before they happen. We also created a document at the end of every project called a customer impact story. A quick summary of the project, includes the challenges that were overcome, and any feedback received from the customer. These are used as a reminder of all the projects that we've accomplished during the year, and they can be presented to upper management as a listing of completed projects. Of the processes that we've adopted, this is the first thing that was adopted by other members of our larger department. So it started with our team, and then other areas have implemented this, and it's been pretty successful so far. If nothing else, it gives extra interactions between us and the customer. Allows them to give us feedback at a particular point. So we can more easily respond to audits. Proof of our processes and adherence to those processes is easily found and presented. We keep all of our documents for a single project, so SharePoint folder. We know where it is, everybody knows where it is, and you can go and you can show it to anybody and reference it. These are our data. We keep our data steward approvals, our cross testing, our move to production approvals, anything else in the one place. Our compliance team loves this. So I got a quote from Zach Hayes. He said, "The Georgia Tech integrations team embraces data governance principles by weaving them into their day-to-day business processes and procedures. Data governance is not just an add-on to their work, it is baked into their service offering." And a large portion of what he's talking about there is having those standard documents, keeping them in a standard place, and making sure that everybody uses them. We empower the team members by giving them a clear direction and process to follow. They have all the tools they need to complete a project from start to finish, and the required deliverables are clearly defined. They also have the freedom to speak up and propose changes to our method when they see that parts aren't working. Using Innovation Thursdays has helped us move institutional knowledge from being concentrated in a few individuals to being spread out throughout the whole team. And this, combined with our clearly documented processes, ease and shorten the transition time for new members. I mean, I know that when I started at Georgia Tech, I spent a fair amount of time running around finding just like, okay, who do I talk to for this? Who do I talk to for that? What's this document? Where does this exist? And that has been largely cut out by what we've implemented. And culture is always a work in progress. But so far, people have seemed to feel free to express their concerns and provide their feedback, and are open about talking about their struggles and mistakes, both from the standpoint of asking for help and offering help through what they've learned. So what are we still working on? The documents, as I said earlier, the documents and processes that we've created will always be a work in progress. If we stop updating them and stop changing them around based upon our new processes, the documents are going to get stale. People are going to stop using them because they're not going to be useful. So we have to keep diligent inside of our process to keep updating them, making them relevant. And myself as a part of the leadership team, it's very imperative that I keep using those documents in every single project. If they see that I'm not using them, then it's going to stop using them, and then the whole process falls apart. And as I said, we're sharing what we've built with other teams inside of our department. It's our hope that our framework will provide inspiration for them to incorporate the pieces of our framework that make sense to them, and that they'll start to talk back to us and say, hey, here's the things that we implemented that make sense for you. As I said, so far, the teams have started using the customer impact stories. And I think a lot of them are starting to implement the development steps document also just in ways that make sense for them because it's really specific to the team. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, functional approval. What does that? An email that says, "Okay, yeah, I'm ready for production." What
The approval for production is usually an email. The data steward agreement is a formal document because that's kind of more. I don't know. There's some issues behind if we expose data. That's a formal document that we keep in place. But a lot of times our move to production is just an email that's part of a chain. And what we'll do is we'll create a PDF out of it and then store it, for proof. Any other?
Very impressive in regards to the documentation that you guys learn when you guys doing your processes. Just curious, like what type of system tool you guys use and what process you guys follow?
It's largely manual. So we have a SharePoint directory that we have kind of the folders specifically laid out upon. And so when you start a new project, you create a SharePoint folder, and there's a set of rules about how it's, the hierarchy of how it's created. And then we have a template directory that we can go and just copy everything in that directory and paste it. So as far as like automation and anything like that, most of it's fairly manual. The documents that we use are largely Word and Excel. I think that what we're really looking at is for version 2 and version 3 is getting some of those things more automated. So for instance, the steps document is just an Excel document, right? That we go in and we fill in dates, check marks, maybe put in URLs to where certain other documents are. But as we get into it further, I'd like to automate it to some point of either some type of like a Power form or something like that from Microsoft, or even if we can get it inside of whatever project management tool we're using. We're currently using Jira, but we're getting away from that. So that's version 2.
So with that being said, you guys don't use visuals. It's pretty much just, or because when you're documenting technology, always run into issues. Sometimes you get a visual kind of see that. But this it's like,
Process maps?
Sorry.
Like process maps, a visual aid?
Yeah, so we do have some. So for instance, our data flows, which largely just describes what we're doing inside the program. That's stored in SharePoint also as like a Gisi document. So we can store it in any kind of thing that we need to.
How do you keep your team accountable, making sure they do all these things you've laid out?
That is the biggest challenge.
John, is what you mean?
Yeah, so let me just state. It's a change. It's a big change. People don't want to do documentation. And so it takes a lot of diligence from anybody that's in management. And that's really the key to it. And that's why I emphasized it inside of that slide, which is like, I have to do it and I have to explain why I'm doing it and then explain what the benefits of it are. That steps document has saved me many times. And I tell my team that. So how do we ensure they do it? Whoever's leading the project, and sometimes other people, go in and check that the documents are actually being done. I'd love to have an automated way of doing it, and maybe someday I can produce that just to make sure that things are being done without me actually going and manually looking at it. But we just have to double check. and then do it ourselves. And I hate this word, but evangelize out to the team. This is why we're doing it, and this is how it benefits you. And please just keep going, and I'm on the path with you, right? The people part of this process is way harder than the document. And I think it always is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. How did you resolve the issue the example you gave for inputting the amount of, was it customers or whatever? What happened?
We ended up breaking it up into parts. And so without getting too specific, rather than being able to see the whole thing that they were going for, they broke it into smaller parts. It was acceptable.
You mentioned bringing on new team members. Do you have a lot of turnover? Are you still hiring for people, or what's your status on?
We do not. We have very little turnover, actually. In fact, since the team has been formed, it was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, something in that neighborhood. We haven't had any. So really, it's just an assumption. The story I told from that came from my standpoint of starting 1.5 years ago. Okay. And understanding that if I would have had this in place when I started, I could have gotten up and running way faster. We do have a little bit of experience. We didn't hire a person, but we brought in a consultant. And so I got to observe that timeline. But I'm still waiting on a new person. That being said, I know that we have people probably retiring soon. We'll get to see a little bit more.
That just seems to be a common theme with everybody I talk to, is that they're either losing people or trying to hire new people. So I was wondering if that was your.
It has not been a big challenge for us yet. I don't know what, magic wand we waved at the beginning to not have turnover. We've had a very solid team. Now, that being said, a good portion of our team has been here for 15, 20 years. I'm one of the new people at 4.5. So, any other question? Yeah.
Can you speak to when you mentioned that some functional people don't know how to test or they don't know what to test? Speak to that process. Like, do you give them testing scenarios and then say go test, or do you make them create the testing scenarios?
It really just depends on the technical level of the person. A lot of times these days we really create the tests and talk them through that. I mean, yeah, we went from a scenario where, as I said, like we were working with very technical people where they could say, here's the 3 fields I want. Here's exactly how they look. They need to be in this part of the page, and then please go do that. Now our requests are like, hey, I want employee data. Okay, well, how do you define an employee? What fields do you want? Especially with like students, because we have like 5 different kinds of students, and what says that they're active or accurate. So we have to walk through these scenarios with them a lot. And so some of our user base, we can give them a data set and say, hey, take a look at this, pick out 20 people, make sure it looks the way you think it should, and then get back to us. That being said, we've also now worked with our data stewards a lot more. So we have well-established data stewards in the HR space and in the student space. And we can create our data set and we can send it to the data stewards and say, hey, this is how we're filtering this. Can you make sure this looks okay? And then once they approve it, then we can send it to the user. So it's already 75% vetted anyways. But for the most part, we have to give them the scenarios, which isn't ideal because we're going to give them the scenarios that we thought of. And so it would be much better if they gave us the scenarios they thought of. I think we'd have a better product. But it also creates a situation where we know that we may go live or get a month down the road, and then we'll have them come back to us and go, oh, I didn't realize that this worked that way. And so now we just kind of move forward with that expectation that we're going to go live, and then we'll probably have to do a revision at least once afterwards. Not a critical one. Maybe they're missing one data point, or month came through as a 3-digit and they really wanted it as something else. didn't prevent go live, but anyway. We're learning along with them. But I guess the short answer is it depends. We usually do it for them. Yeah, any other questions?
With this entire process, was this something that you pretty much just put together yourself, or whether your team member was involved, or was it you and other managers?
So here's what I would say. Chhaya is our associate director now. Let's just say Chhaya is our lead now. And then there's 3 managers on the team, myself, Joe, and a lady named Hema. And so I would really say that this was Chhaya's vision. And so she laid it out and then dispersed it to me and Joe and Hema to put together. So we all, as a team of 4, and actually including Prabir did a lot of work. Prabir did a lot of work with the team. We worked as a team to come up.
So you said it was a lady, right? What's her name again? I'm just curious. I want to.
Her name's Hema. I can give you her full name. It's Hemalata. How do you pronounce her last name? Malabulu. I'll give it to you afterwards.
Okay, that's good. Reason why I want to know, because process is an impressive process, and it's very difficult to have managers or certain departments understand the importance of having this process, because having a process like this can help shorten the day, work seamlessly. You'd be surprised how a lot of people don't believe in process. That's why it's a lot of obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about it further, I think my name's on there. You can reach out to any of us and we'll talk to you. But it was definitely a larger team effort. It wasn't just one person.
It sounds like that you pretty much, I mean, because of course, you was part of the team and you know, pretty much.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to take little credit for this. I mean, it was just because I'm here speaking about it, it's just because I was a part of the process. It was a huge team effort, and it was definitely Chhaya's vision. She walked into it and it's like, okay, so we've got this team and everybody's new. Some of us have worked together, some of us haven't. It's a huge change for everybody, and we're doing this whole new thing that we haven't done before. So, and she really came up with a vision and drove it, and you know, gave it down to the people that worked for her to build it with guidance. And we've gone through a lot of iterations and figured stuff out. But as I said, the people part of it's the hardest part.
And the end result is probably the reason why you guys have little to no turnover.
It could be. I mean, it could be. I think we just have a good team. And anybody else? Thank you, everyone, for coming.